faculty members, distinguished guests, and dear students. It is a profound privilege to welcome you all to SZABIST's special lecture, Towards a Just Pakistan, Legal Advocacy in Times of Crisis. I'm Aisha Ibrahim, and I'm joined by my co-host, Laiba Arshad, as we guide you through what promises to be a deeply thought-provoking and an inspiring session.
Today we gather not merely for a lecture, but for a moment of collective reflection, a space where law meets conscience and advocacy becomes a lifeline for the voiceless. Our guests today are individuals whose work have not only transformed the legal landscape, but also reshaped how we understand justice, human dignity, and responsibility.
Before we formally begin the session, it is our privilege to invite one of our esteemed guests to deliver the welcome address. We are honored to welcome Professor Dr. Riaz Ahmed Sheikh, Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences at SZABIST, someone widely respected for his courage in addressing difficult truths. Dr. Sheikh has consistently spoken out on behalf of communities and individuals marginalized by systematic injustice. Sir, please.
Oh. Qazi Sahib is here. So Qazi Sahib is the right person to speak. No. Qazi Sahib, please come. I welcome Dr. Just Qazi Sahib, our Vice President Admin. Qazi Sahib, you have to speak. Huh? I invite Just Qazi Sahib to come and welcome our guest. Qazi Sahib, please.
Dr. Sheikh has, excuse me, he has the tendency to embarrass me, and he would never learn. All right. It's a pleasure, indeed, to listen to such eminent people, and on this very, very particular and pertinent issue that we face today in the world. And the humanity, in fact, suffers from this. I saw this notice of this event, and I was quite intrigued by the topics that have been selected for discussion. And without much ado, frankly, I would be part of the audience to learn and get enlightened from what we are to hear today. Very, very pertinent and very relevant issue of the world today. Thank you so much.
Sir, if you want to continue with it.
It means nobody is going to spare me, huh? Thank you very much. The topic is very relevant, as Qazi Sahib has mentioned, because law always has a class character. And one has to see how law has been implemented from the historical perspective, whether it's Greek societies or Roman society, in a monarchical structure, always law has been implemented and introduced according to the needs and requirements of the ruling classes. That's the reason Marx says, yes, we have to see all this implementation through the people's perspective. And ultimately, people's perspective means laws should be for the ordinary people. Law should safeguard the requirements and needs of the ordinary people. And we have to see whether these implementation has been done or not. And right now, what Derrida, French scholar, mentioned, in the age of terrorism, that all laws they have wiped out, and all these laws have been replaced with the laws which are humiliating laws, which are anti-people. What we saw in Abu Ghraib jail, what we saw in Guantánamo Bay, is a sheer violation of what were the laws which were established through the process of experience of centuries and decades. But we have seen all laws of UN, 1948 human law, evaporated. Nothing has been, respected and honored. And after neoliberalism, the rest of the laws which were here for the dignity, the concept of welfare state, everything has been, replaced with the concept of all these, contract and other things which are prevailing in the world. So I think in the same context, Pakistan, a new colonial state, continuing the same legacy which was introduced in the colonial time. And Justice Munir was the man who introduced the concept of doctrine of necessity. And that doctrine of necessity is still with us. We have 26 constitutional amendment with us. We have permitted the military courts to trial the civilians. That's a shameful act. And then we, as a citizen of this country, respectable citizen of this country, must challenge it at all forums. That military has no right to challenge the civilians. These are the civilians who have the supremacy on the military affairs. And that has to be settled. I think in this context, your view will be very important. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Riaz.
Now we begin our main session, which will be followed by a Q&A segment moderated by one of our own students, a key member of the SZABIST Legal Aid Center and a mooting champion, Mujtaba Abdi. Our speaker today is an internationally renowned human rights lawyer whose work spans decades and continents.
Mr. Clive Stafford Smith. I have not started with his introduction. He has devoted his career to defending those most forsaken by the justice system, from death row inmates in the United States to detainees at Guantánamo Bay. Through his pioneering work with Reprieve, the legal charity he founded in the UK, he has consistently challenged systems of injustice and impunity. His books are essential reading for anyone seeking to understand systematic abuse and the power of legal advocacy. Beyond litigation, Mr. Stafford's lifelong commitment to justice is marked by empathy, resilience, and unwavering belief that no one is beyond the reach of human rights.
He has also been a prominent voice in the case of Dr. Afia Siddiqui, raising urgent humanitarian concerns surrounding her prolonged detentions, allegations of mistreatment, and serious questions of due process. His advocacy in this matter reminds us that justice is not only confined by borders, and that legal professions must always serve as a shield for those who are vulnerable.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, first of all...
So first, you're not allowed to call me Mr. Smith. My name is Clive. And what's your name?
Mustafa.
Can I call you that? All right, Mustafa. Go ahead.
Okay, so Clive, you spent years working with detainees at Guantánamo Bay, one of the most secretive and controversial detention sites in the world. For those of you who must not be familiar with what Guantánamo Bay really is, can you walk us through what it really is, how it came about, and why it remains such a piece of stake on global justice?
Well, first, Guantánamo Bay is obviously my Caribbean resort of choice. I've been there 42 times. I've spent a year and a half of my life there. But Guantánamo is like everything else that I think we were hearing about before. It's the way I like to see it. My mother told me that my role as an OPWM, do you know what that is? What is an OPWM?
The OPWM is the title?
No, you don't know what an OPM is. There's a key thing when you're a lawyer, and lawyers and doctors never know to say, I don't know. And when I say something like that, you know I'm bullshitting. So you should just say, because I made it up, right? OPWM stands for old privileged white male. That's me, right? And my mum told me my job was to look around the world for the people who are most hated and to get between them and doing the hatred. And that's what the gentleman before was talking about the law. But it's not just the law. I don't know what you lot out there are, whether you're lawyers or lawyer wannabes or sociologists or business people or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Your job is to get between the hatred and the people doing the hating. And the reason I went to America when I was 19, because I was born in Cambridge, right? That means we're arrogant. We think we run the world, even though we're a very small island. And we've screwed up most of this part of the world by drawing ridiculous lines between countries. But I thought as a 19-year-old I'd go and set the Americans straight on the death penalty. And I went there because when a client is taken into the execution chamber, which has happened to 6 of my people, and I have to go in there with them. The government is saying this person is so subhuman that we're going to sacrifice them to death as a ritual human sacrifice to some mythological god of deterrence. And it's all about the fact in America that we like to blame I'm American too. So look, I'm British and American. Whatever in the world you want to blame on someone, you can blame on me. We do that because we can either take difficult choices in the world, right? And we can try to solve crime, we can solve drug things, we can educate people, but that takes a lot of work. Or we can just say it's a bunch of young black men and we're going to blame it all on them. And that was how it worked for a long time in the US on the death penalty. But then we found a new person to hate, and we're not going to be able to do it to you because you're not growing a beard. We need you to grow a beard. We learn to hate. It's horrible. We joke about it, but it's disgusting that we choose instead to blame everything on bearded Muslim men. And when they set up Guantánamo Bay, I was horrified. And honestly, I called around all my mates and said, let's sue George Bush. What could be more fun? And because the Americans have never been invaded like the rest of the world, you can name the 3 times the US has been invaded, right, by dates. Let's pick on the teachers, see if they learned anything in school. Give me a date America was territorially invaded, and I want the day of the week and the month.
I know, it celebrates its independence on the 4th of July.
No, it's invaded, not when they kicked the British out. So there are only 3 times. There are 3, yeah, you know them. 9/11 one, so September, take the easy one, right? What's the next one? December the 7th, 1941, what's that? Sorry? Pearl Harbor. And the third one? No, it's 1812, it's when the British burned the White House down. The White House used to be grey until we burned it down. They rebuilt it as the White House, right? Those are the only 3 times the Americans have ever been invaded. So they don't get it. And when I wanted to get all my death penalty mates, I've been doing death penalty defense for 25 years then, and I wanted them to sue Bush with me about Guantanamo. No one would do it. It was horrifying. And in the end, I got 2 friends to do it, and we sued on February the 19th, 2002 in Rasul versus Bush. And that day they filed it. I don't have a television, right? So I don't watch TV because it's rubbish. And so the Fox television wanted someone to go on and explain what we were doing, suing the US about Guantanamo. So I said, I'll do it. And the other 2 had the good sense to say no because they knew what was coming. And I went on that TV program. I was accused, I'm an American citizen. I was accused of being a traitor to America 13 times in a 5-minute interview. And even though my phone was unlisted, I got some amazing hate mail and death threats that night, all of which is cool, right? You want to get those things because they're great for fundraising. But, we sued Guantanamo because it was just an obvious way that Bush was trying to say that they were going to solve this whole terrorism bit. And by the way, I disagree fundamentally that we live in a world of terrorism. There's always been people who fight against power who are called terrorists and then they become freedom fighters. A lot of you guys did that to the British, and thank goodness I'm on your side. But Guantanamo was there so that Bush could pretend he was doing something about 9/11 when in fact he was doing nothing good. And the secrecy was there so that they could keep everything secret. And honestly, the law is very, very limited relevance in this. The media is far more important, and we can talk about that. But I think I just introduced but you can go on. You have a question. I've talked too much, sorry. And then, by the way, anyone can interrupt at any time. The only 2 rules in my talks are, normally I show pictures of my son, and then you have to go ooh and ah, but you don't have to do that today. But the other rule is you can interrupt and heckle at any moment. Go ahead.
You're right about capital punishment, right? Some still argue, even in this part of the world, that death penalty is acceptable if used really with full due process. Do you think it could ever be truly just, even in such a limited case?
Well, of course not. But let's have a little... Which country in the world has the most people on death row? No, you shut up. I know him. I told him what the answer was, and So who is it? Sorry? Saudi Arabia? No, they kill people. It's not the United States. No. You people are so modest. It's Pakistan, by far. Pakistan has more people on death row than any other country, by far. You have roughly 8,500 people on death row, and you don't even know it. And, how can that be doing any good? And I was in a court in Lahore 25 years ago, and I was talking to this judge. Let me ask you a question. Before you convict someone, how sure do you have to be of any crime, let alone a capital? And what does that mean statistically? Is it 90%? What do you think?
100%.
You're not 100% certain you're alive. We could be in a lunatic asylum and you're banging your head against the wall. What's a real number? Come on, you can't ever be 100% sure.
It should be closer to 100%.
How close? How close?
99.9% at least.
99.9%, because there are 6 million people in America facing prison, means you're aiming at 60,000 innocent people in prison. So is that good enough? No. Now, this judge told me that the evidence, I'm going to use a legal term here, the evidence in Pakistani courts is so shit that he will convict someone if he's 60% sure that they did it. That's a little better than tossing a coin. And I asked him, what percentage of the 8,500 people on death row in Pakistan do you think are possibly innocent? And he said, well, judging by my courts, probably about 60% of them. So 6 out of 10 didn't do it. That means 5,000 people on your death row are innocent. And I've done a lot of death penalty cases in this country too, and I reckon that's true. And that's horrifying. So this whole mythological notion that there's a specific case that's so bad that we can all be sure of that they did it is just nonsense. But the other thing that's much more important than that is this. I've watched 6 people die in front of me. If I close my eyes right now, I can see the electric chair where my client, Nicky Ingram, born in the same hospital as me in Cambridge, UK, where he was being tortured to death in the electric chair. And when you see that stuff, you come out, it's always the middle of the night because we're basically ashamed of it. And you come out and you look up at the stars and you say to yourself, wow, did that really make the world a more civilized place? And there's an obvious answer to it, which no, it's total barbarism. So no, of course, there's no good death penalty case. But we could go much further in prison. Do you believe in prison?
I do believe in prison.
No, you don't. Here we go. Who's the person you most love in the world?
My parents.
No, name one of them.
My mom.
Your mum. Okay, and what's her name?
Naila.
Do you mind? You're Naila, right?
No.
You are Naila. No, you're Naila now. I'm telling you, you're Naila. That's Naila. I'm the prosecutor. Never going to happen. But let's pretend I'm the prosecutor. That's Naila. You're the judge. And who knows this guy here? Which of you guys know him? Yeah. Who does? Okay. Do you know his mum? I want you to tell his mum what he says now, right? So that's Naila, and I'm saying she killed someone. You're the judge. Will you send her to prison? No, not the death penalty. Will you look at your mum and say, Mum, I'm going to send you to prison? Look at her. Are you going to do that?
Only if it stops others from doing the same crime.
No. She's your mum, for goodness sake. He can't even look. That's because he knows that he's never going to get dinner from his mum if he says the wrong thing ever again. Come on, look her in the eye, and if you mean it, I don't think you do because you look like a nice guy. I don't think you really are going to send your mum to prison. Look her in the eye.
I might send you to prison. Not before.
No, you got to say, and I'm telling you, I'm the prosecutor. She did it. She did it. She killed someone. Look her in the eye and say, Mum, Naila, I'm sending you to prison. Or if you don't want to do that, just be honest and civilized and say, no, Mum, I'm going to try and understand it and make you a better person, help you, because I know there must have been some reason. Do you think your mum would do it without a reason?
No, I think she would have some justification.
She's probably defending you, you miserable sod. So, So come on, look her in the eye and say, Mom, I'm sending you to prison. Or look her in the eye and say, Mom, I don't think I would send you to prison.
Mom, I don't think I would send you to prison.
See, I knew you would say that. But he's a nice guy, right? He's obviously a nice guy. Now, every now and then you come across a sociopath. They're normally judges. And they think we really should send people to prison. I don't. I think it's totally barbaric. But it's something that you've been indoctrinated to believe, and the vast majority of people have been indoctrinated to believe. But there's much better ways of dealing with the world's problems. And when I think about my son, I can honestly look you in the eye and say, I have never punished my son. I've never taken Minecraft away from him. I've never sent him to bed early. Because if I can't get him to do the right thing, it's on me. And, it's not like when I was a kid, I don't know about you, but I was beaten. I was waterboarded at my posh English private school. Did you get that privilege or not? Your parents didn't pay enough, obviously. Yeah. Do you know, can I tell you what they did at my school? This is extraordinary. They put us in a bath. They put wooden slats over it. They filled it up with cold water until you were drowning. And then if you poked your nose between the slats, they took a pin and stuck it in your nose so you wouldn't do that. These people were barbaric. And when I was in Guantánamo talking to my clients, one of them starts talking about being waterboarded, and it all came back to me. And I said, oh, that happened to me. But my parents paid for it. And, we used to do that stuff, and it was deranged. And one of the wonderful things about my life is that I don't know about you guys here, but in Britain, it's a criminal offense to beat your child or to smack them. And you just can't do it. And that's a wonderful step forward. We've still got a way to go. But the idea that we're getting so exponentially more sensible about children, and yet we're so repressive and regressive about adults, is just silly. There's just much better ways to deal with people doing antisocial things. So if someone's committing a heinous recidivist offense like voting for Donald Trump, what you got to do is talk them out of it and give them a better alternative. I didn't vote for him, by the way.
So since Guantánamo felt like school to you, and it's British...
It wasn't that bad. Guantánamo is nothing like as bad as school.
So these 87 detainees from Guantánamo.
87.
In such a close and hostile system, how do you even begin to gain access to these criminals or these convicts or these accused?
Or these people.
Or these people.
These Muslim men who have been tortured and kidnapped from their home countries, is what you meant, right? Yeah. Well, look, it's actually easy because, we had to sue America to get in there. But we have a constitution. You people, I understand from your esteemed teacher here that by and large you're taught British law. I'm here to tell you British law is total bullshit. It is the weakest legal system I've ever dealt with. In America, and you'd be surprised to hear this, but I teach courses at Bristol University in London about how we really ought to adopt the American system. The American system is fabulous. As an American lawyer, I have incredible power. I have the US Constitution. I have sued the American president 88 times, and I've lost once. And I'm really bitter about the case I lost. And it's not because I'm so good, it's because I got the Constitution, and they lose. And if they do something bad, they lose. But it's not that judges are so great either, because in Guantánamo, of the 87 people I've got out, the courts ordered the release of one. And the other 86 we got out by going in there, getting the evidence of what happened to them, getting it past the censors, the CIA, and then publishing it to the world. Can I tell you my favorite of all stories? I've got lots of them. I wrote a whole book about this. But my favorite of all, I had no idea when I started doing Guantánamo work how stupid the intelligence services were. I mean, it was really astounding. I have a security clearance, so I see all their secret stuff. If I tell you, I'll have to kill you. But I can tell you the stuff that we got declassified. And I'm going to tell you the story of Mohammed al-Ghorani, who is a 14-year-old child who is in Saudi Arabia, and he's black. And Saudi, I don't know how many of you are Saudi, but I got to say, Saudi Arabia makes Mississippi look good when it comes to racism. And because he was black, he couldn't go to secondary school, and he's a very smart kid. So he decided he was going to come to Karachi, of all places, because it's full of fabulous teachers, and he was going to study English and computers in Karachi. So he came to Karachi, age 14, incredible, courage I thought he had. But unfortunately, he timed it slightly badly, because he came here around about August 2001. And a few weeks later, 9/11 happened, and then what did we do as Americans? What do we do best as Americans? Bribe people. So we dropped leaflets from the sky on everyone here in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. And if you don't believe me, go read Musharraf's terrible book, In the Line of Fire, on page 234, where he said that he, Musharraf and his mates, took these bribe monies of bounties, and more than half of the prisoners in Guantánamo were sold to the Americans by your government. So one of them was poor old Mohammed El-Ghorani. And, he's sold to the Americans. He's never met a white person before, and they're interrogating him, and he only speaks Arabic. And he learnt his Arabic in Saudi Arabia. And they have a Yemeni translator. And in Yemeni Arabic, apparently, I'm not fluent, but the word zalat in Yemeni Arabic means money. But in Saudi Arabic, it means salad or tomatoes. And so these Americans are interrogating poor Mohammed and say, when you went to Karachi, what zalat did you have with you? And he thought that was a slightly strange question. I mean, why would I take salad with me to Karachi? And so he says, I didn't have any zalat when I went to Karachi. And the CIA got very angry, and they all had to have zalat. And he really thought these people were very weird when he told me this story some months later. And he said, no. When I went to Karachi, I could get zalat wherever I needed it. So the CIA got terribly excited. Now, who would like to be my CIA agent? You look like a CIA young man. Yeah, you. Come on, okay, now, you're a CIA... Sorry, I'm pointing. No, it's you. Don't look behind you. It's you. It's you. You're a CIA agent. This kid has just told you he could get zalat anywhere he needed it in Karachi. What does that tell you, sir? Remember, you've got to be really stupid. No, you would. So what do you think that means this lad is in Al-Qaeda? He's obviously a very important person. Who is he? You can call your friends in the CIA. They're all itching to say something stupid behind you. The CIA is arguing right now. What does this mean? Well, come up with your best shot. This is what intelligence agents are like. They're sitting in a room. They're both very stupid people. They're trying to work out what's going on here. Yeah, what is it? Come on. Do you want me to help you out? This is getting boring. The CIA is just going on and on, aren't they? The CIA said if he could get zalat, meaning money, anywhere in Karachi, he must be an Al-Qaeda financier. And they decided he's 26 years old. Where they got that bit, I don't know. So they start interrogating him. Where could you get zalat in Karachi? And poor old Yusuf, Mohammed, lists vegetable stalls that he knew about in Karachi. And the CIA wrote that shit down. And when I came to represent him, they thought he was a 26-year-old Al-Qaeda financier. And I said to the CIA guy, I said, how do you think we could prove how old he is? And how would you're a CIA guy, how would you prove how old he is? No, but he's not carrying any documents, so how do you do it? Medical. Oh, we have a real CIA agent over here. Yeah, that's what the CIA said. We'll do a tooth analysis and see how old his teeth are. Why don't you just go get his birth certificate from Saudi Arabia, you moron? And that's what I did. It took 30 minutes. And it proved he was 14. So they had to dismiss that bit. But now they had a snitch saying he was head of the British London cell of Al-Qaeda because he had a lawyer with a British accent. So we proved he was 11 years old when he was supposedly doing that, and he'd never been out of Saudi Arabia. This is what got people in Guantánamo Bay, right?
That's
And that's it. So when we publish that stuff, they let them go because it's tone. And there are much more embarrassing stories than that about how we tortured people. Do you want to hear some torture stories?
Not really, because I don't think anyone here can actually hear those stories and be okay with it.
No, right. You got to hear those stories. They're actually, yeah.
When you meet these people, these innocent people who have been accused of heinous crimes which they have not committed, like you just mentioned, 11-year-old, what are their mental state when you actually meet them and they finally have some hope maybe, or maybe they don't have hope? What is the mental state in that prison?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, would you mind me asking, and you don't have to answer this, what the worst thing that's ever happened to you in life is?
Failing some exam probably.
Oh, God. Who failed him? Which of you people failed him? You've traumatized this poor lad forever. How could you do that? No, this is pathetic, right? It's always the same when you talk to British people. You say, what's the worst thing ever happened to you? And someone stole my bike once, or some total nonsense. I mean, actually, the reason I asked you that is I hope something far worse has happened to you that you're too embarrassed to talk about, because your superpower, for most of you people out there, is going to relate to bad things that happen to you, or things you're slightly ashamed of, or things that you think are weaknesses, right? One of your superpowers is that you're a woman, right? Because, yeah, it is it really is, because the world underestimates you, the world picks on you, and you can say things that I can't say. You can go to Afghanistan, where I go all the time, and you can say what it's really like, whereas if I say it, all those Western people say, that can't be true, you're a man. And so we've all got superpowers. Now, with the people in Guantánamo, if they're able to do it, they turn the torture that they've gone through into a great power. So Omar de Gaius, who's one guy I represented, a British guy who was a law student when he was put in Guantánamo. I tried to get his law books into him so he could keep on studying. The censors wouldn't let him in because they talked about presumption of innocence and stuff like that. But Omar was blinded in one eye in Guantánamo, and he went through horrible torture and abuse. And when I did a program with him not long ago in Britain, he began by saying, I thank the Americans for what they did. I wouldn't change a single thing of what they did, because what they did for me is take a life that I think was going to be a bit of a waste and give me a superpower where I can now be an advocate for justice. Now, that's what happens if people take a really good and therapeutic approach to all this stuff. It's not what happens with everyone. Afia Siddiqui, who is, in my view, I've represented 150-odd people in this war of terror stuff. It's not the war on terror. It's what Borat calls it, the war of terror. And they've been through horrible things. Binyam Mohammed was taken to Morocco, where they took a razor blade to his genitals. But Afia has been through far, far worse. And that included her 3 children being abducted with her from just over there near the Karachi airport by you-know-who. I'm always very happy to talk about who it was. I've got a secret tape recording of the guy boasting that he did it, but I'm not going to say it here because I'm told I shouldn't. But actually, I really like it because I can get away with that because I'm an old privileged white male. But she was taken with her 3 children, right? Now, I've got 1 child. And if you got children, because you said you loved it, how would you feel if you were abducted with your children?
I don't even think I have words to explain.
And what would happen? How many kids you got? 1. Oh, yeah, very sensible. I don't know about these people who have 3. But so she had 3, and there was Ahmed, age 6, Mariam, age 3, and Suleiman, age 6 months. And they were kidnapped with her from near your airport here. And the CIA then took Ahmed to a prison in Kabul, 1,000 kilometers from here. And he was 6 years old, and he was an American citizen, for Christ's sake. And the CIA took him there, put him in prison for 5 years, called him Ihsan Ali, and said they'd kill him if he ever said he wasn't Ihsan Ali. The second child, Mariam, age 3. The Americans took her to Kabul, forcibly adopted her into a white Christian American family. Can I ask you a question? is the only way you could go to heaven to become a Christian.
The only way that I go to heaven is become a Christian.
You can't go to heaven if you're not Christian. That's true, right?
I don't agree, but okay.
Don't agree. Just say no. You're an idiot, Clive. That's what the CIA thinks. They really do. And, they mean well by it. It's just they're insane. And so they took this little girl and put her in a white family for 7 years. And she's only back here in Karachi. She graduated as a doctor 2 weeks ago because her auntie, Fawzia Siddiqui, is, if you're ever in trouble, you want that woman as your sister. And so that's what they did with Mariam. Now, Suleiman, we have no idea, because Fawzia got those kids back. Suleiman was 6 months old, and no one's seen him since March the 30th, 2003. No one, at least, except the Americans. So what do you think happened? Let me ask you a question. This is a tough question, right? If your child had been gone for 22 years, would you want the closure of knowing that your child, what's your child called? Matul. Is that male or female? Girl. Okay. Would you want the closure of knowing that she was passed away and dead? Or would you want to cling to a little hope that she might be alive? Which would you want? I want all of you to think about that.
I think I would want closure.
You'd want closure. Who wants closure? Put your hand up. You can't not vote on this. You've got to go one way or the other. Who agrees with her that you'd want closure? Who thinks you'd want to hold out some hope that maybe the little girl's still alive? So, I don't know. When I first got involved in Afia's case, which was about a little over 2 years ago, I thought they were just stupid to think that this child was still alive. But then I learned what they did to Mariam, and then I've been to Afghanistan 5 times on the case, and do you know what? In the last year that the Americans were in Afghanistan, we abducted 1,250 little children and took them to America on the principle that they'd be better off there. Can you imagine that? That's what our job is, right? I mean, because if you're a poor Afghan family, you can't go litigate in America. But I can. And we're going to have a conference in September where we're going to invite all the parents or the families of those little children so we can see if we can't get them back. Because your job, if you're lawyers or journalists or anybody actually, is to help those poor people who can't possibly do it for themselves. But then I'm going to do this little thing. This is where the media people among you come in, and this is going to be so much fun. Because I really want to screw over the American government for what they did. And my idea is, I've got Al Jazeera doing a film. We were just shooting it in Afghanistan. And we've got AI reproductions of what Suleiman would look like today, plus every year through the last 23 years. And the film, I hope, is going to be ultimately called Searching for Suleiman. And we're going to put all these pictures across America. And there are all these kids who are Afghan or Pakistani heritage who were adopted unknowingly into American families who are going to want to know about their biological family. They're going to see those pictures. They'll come forward. It'll go viral across America, and we'll DNA test them. This is the sort of way that you get publicity for the person you're representing, because it's got nothing to do with whether Afia did anything wrong. She didn't. But this is how we're going to get her out, because it'll just terrify the Americans that we're going to go after them on this. And then we're going to go after the CIA for kidnapping 2 little American children and putting them through what they did. That's how you win legal cases, not by that legal nonsense you get. Yeah. So she's asking how often I face intimidation from the powers that be in the US. And I would never use the word intimidation because I think, I get threatened, yeah. And I've been tried 5 times for various things, mostly contempt of court. And I'm just going to tell you a little secret here. For the most part, I have nothing but contempt for those courts. They're terrible. They should do their job. But I've been acquitted each time, but I don't view that as intimidating. Sometimes it is a bit nasty. I don't like it. But as long as I'm on trial, my client isn't. And that's really cool. And then if you do this stuff and you have friends, as you've got here, then when I get arrested and detained, which does happen, and I've been taken in by a number of secret services around the world, my friends come and get me out. And obviously, I'm going to do that for you lot if you do this stuff and you get in trouble. So you don't want to ever be afraid of anything, because honestly, all bad decisions are made through fear. And the Americans make a huge number of them because they don't have a health service, they don't have pensions, they don't have anything, and they're always afraid they're going to starve to death at some point, which is ironic because it's the richest country on earth. And they make very bad judgments about what they're going to do with their life. And I bet some of you are thinking about it too, so don't do it. Don't go do corporate law. It's a total waste of your lifetime. Don't do stuff that you think you can do just to make money, a total waste of life. Instead, do stuff you really are passionate about. Because who's a mathematician here? Who does maths? Oh, come on. I'm going to give you a really easy arithmetical thing. Is he telling, come on, this is easy. Okay, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 50 years. How many hours are you going to have to work in your life? No. Okay, come on. 4 times 5 is what? 20. 20 times 5 is what? You're doing well. You're doing well. Now add 3 zeros to 100. What do you got? Who said 300,000? Obviously, you're going to law school.
I told you I was bad.
I love it. Yesterday we were talking to some law teacher, lovely, lovely guy. But it was clear to me by the end he became a lawyer because he was dreadful at basic arithmetic. Anyway, you're going to do 100,000 hours of work in your life on average. For me, it's about 3 times that because I love what I do and I think we should do far more than 40 hours a week. But just imagine you're doing something you don't like or is boring. God, that would be awful, right? So you've got to do something that you adore. And I would have Thank God It's Monday on my desk, not Thank God It's Friday. Not that the weekends make a difference, except when we got a cricket match. But, because you want to really look forward to everything you do. I don't know why I went off on that long rant. It had nothing to do with your question. I do apologize.
Inspiration also still of a way of looking at the things that are going on in society. And bringing it back to the topic at hand.
He's having to drag it back to the topic at hand.
Advocacy in the times of crisis. So CIA would justify their actions by saying that this is the time of crisis, terrorism and whatnot. And then they pick up these people, abduct these people, and particularly Dr. Afif Siddiqui. What's your perspective on her case? CIA would justify it as in the time of crisis they had to do it. So,
well, this is the problem, that when populists decide they want to do stuff because it's desperately important, because, look at Donald Trump, or deranged Donald, as we call him. He thinks that we're being invaded by foreigners. There's a lovely meme that says foreigners, immigrants, do a lot of jobs that we don't want to do ourselves in America. And then it shows a picture of his 2 wives who are foreign. And that's true, right? You wouldn't want to marry Donald Trump. This idea that foreigners are invading America, they're all foreigners, American. I'm a foreigner, right? It wasn't me. I'm not a native American. And, I was a foreigner when we came here and tried to steal your country as well. And, this hatred of immigrants is the same thing as the hatred of so-called terrorists. And in fact, you saw it, right? That I got my 87th client out of Guantánamo Bay on January the 5th, 2025, this year. 3 weeks later, Donald Trump promised to give me 30,000 new clients in Guantanamo, and they're all going to be the worst of the worst immigrants in the world. And we knocked that back in 2 weeks because he's such a moron. He didn't realize that the pretext under which they brought the terrorists, the so-called terrorists, in 2002 was that they were coming from outside America, so they'd never been to America, so they didn't have constitutional rights, because I'm afraid you're a foreigner, right? Are you a foreigner?
In this country, no.
You're a foreigner to us. And we say this ridiculous thing in America that foreigners don't have constitutional rights if they're outside the US, right? And in Guantanamo, when people say that sort of silliness, you've got to make people laugh at them, right? Don't get angry, because getting angry is just a bit pathetic. And when you get angry and start hating Donald Trump, that makes him feel better, because you're a commie pinko liberal, and that reconfirms who he is. What he hates is when you laugh at him. So when we were dealing with Guantánamo Bay, and they were saying that you people, who we refer to as foreigners, have no rights in Guantánamo Bay, we discovered that the environmental laws applied in Guantánamo. So if I, as American, kick you, fine. But if I kick an iguana, 10 years in prison, $10,000 fine. So in the US Supreme Court in Rasul versus Bush, we argued that you lot should have equal rights with iguanas, which the Supreme Court thought was pretty funny. And it's quite hard for the American government to argue that iguanas should have greater rights than Pakistanis. So, we won that stuff even though our clients were coming in from abroad. But when Trump took all those people to Guantanamo, he took them from America. Now, all those foreigners, Venezuelans with who here's got a tattoo? Do you people not have tattoos? Oh, come on, put your hand up. No one's got a tattoo at all. Wow. You got to do those henna things, which are fake tattoos, right? Anyway, Trump said the Venezuelans with tattoos were clearly the worst of the worst terrorists and criminal immigrants in the world. But they were all coming from America, so the whole US Constitution applied to them. So we got to sue him, and he lost in 2 weeks. And as you've noticed, there are no more immigrants taken to Guantanamo. So, those things, it's all the same. It's all this hatred. And we do it in many, many ways, and each country does it. And who are your hate figures in Pakistan? I can tell you, but I want you to say. Who are they? Who do you hate? All the time.
Probably Iblis, the devil.
No. Human beings. No. In your constitution, you hate a group. Who do you hate in your... The Ahmadis. The Ahmadis. Why in your constitution does it say you hate Ahmadis? You people are mad, right? Yeah. Now, you hate the Israelis too. I mean, we all hate Netanyahu. That's fair enough. But you shouldn't hate the Israelis. They're perfectly nice people. So we all have groups we hate. But you also hate Afghans. You're being told you should hate them and kick them all out of the country, right? Who else do you hate? You really hate the Indians. Okay, yeah, we can. But just before we finish this, I just want you to remember, whenever people tell you to hate people, they're trying to distract you from what they're doing that's really quite unpleasant. So whenever you hear someone telling you to hate people, just go defend that person. That's your job. Yeah.
That's great. I'm grateful for your answers. And now I'm going to be opening the floor for questions from the audience. If anyone has questions, I think they will be giving you the mics.
Give a mic. Do you want one of these mics?
I have one question which is pretty old, perhaps, and forgive my ignorance. There is a lot of talk about abolishing of the death penalty and human rights and all these things, which may appear quite all right on paper and music to ears. But if my child is killed by somebody and he is really the genuine killer, then I would not mind if he's angry. So it doesn't sway me from this fundamental rights issue and these things. This is my question.
No, okay. Now, what he's saying is that if his kid is killed and we know exactly who it is, you'd probably shoot him yourself, right? Yeah. Well, and this is quite human, and our entire evolution has been to try to get away from that. And I'll tell you a story about a woman I greatly admire. I was representing a guy called Ricky Langley in Louisiana, who was a pedophile who had killed Lorelei Guillory's son, 6-year-old son, Jeremy. And Lorelei was an alcoholic, uneducated woman from southwest Louisiana. Now, initially, Ricky was sentenced to death, and Lorelei didn't want that. Because when we tell people, and I do this, I've done 400 death penalty cases in my career, and I talk to the victim's family in every case. And one of the saddest things I find is that they're promised that it's going to make them feel better if we kill this guy. And it's a lie. And I've been to executions where the victim's family's been there, and they haven't felt better. And they've watched what I watched, and it didn't do them any good. Now, with Lorelei genuinely wanted to understand why Ricky had killed her son. And I was doing the retrial, and I sat down with Lorelei, and I said, you can talk to Ricky, and Ricky will tell you his story. And he wants to apologize to you. And, if at the end of that you want to testify against him about what he said, be my guest. And Lorelei went in to see Ricky, and Ricky told the whole story that we can prove to be true, which is in 1965, his dad was driving along the road, and his dad was drunk driving, and there was his wife in the car. The dad was called Elsie, the wife was called Bessie, and 2 kids in the back. And Dad drove off the road and into a telegraph pole. The kids were thrown through the window and killed instantly. And his wife was thrown through the front window, and she was in a body cast from her neck to her ankles for the next 2 years. When this woman was in a body cast, she got pregnant. Now, she got pregnant in prison, in hospital, because her husband thought he had the right to have sex with her when she's in a full-length body cast. Now, during that, no one thought she was pregnant. They didn't believe it. So they carried on with x-rays and drugs and all sorts of stuff. And for 5 months, they did this. And the fetus was Ricky Langley. And Ricky Langley was undergoing his own little Hiroshima of x-rays. And one of the drugs that the doctors gave to Ricky through his mother has been linked to pedophilia now. Now, we can prove that, but I didn't present that to the jury because I didn't think anyone would believe it, but it's true. Now, there came a point when they figured out she was pregnant, and they cut the cast off, a big whoosh, and the doctors say, you got to have an abortion because of what this fetus has been through. And Alcide, the father, the abusive father, said, we're not having any of that. We're Catholic and we don't believe in abortion. So Ricky's born. Ricky is obviously unwell from the very beginning. And, my dad was bipolar and nutty as a March hare, but, Ricky is just the most traumatized person in that sense that I've ever met. Now, when he was age 8, he starts sleeping on gravestones. When he was 10, he put a notice on his school notice board saying, my name's not Ricky Langley, my name is Oscar Lee, his dead brother. And he's sexually abused himself as a child throughout his childhood. Now, he ends up molesting another child, and he goes to prison, and they give him therapy. And in the therapy, they say, you're a pedophile. We are too stupid at this stage in our evolution to cure you. You're going to be a pedophile forever. And it means you're probably going to molest other children. Ricky, deeply mentally ill, but really intelligent, writes a letter to the parole board saying, you've convinced me I'm a pedophile. You've convinced me I'm dangerous. Don't let me out, whatever you do. And so the parole board pays no attention, lets him out. And a year later, he ends up killing little Jeremy, right? And he really thought, whether you believe it or not, he thought he was strangling his dead brother, Oscar Lee, at the time. Now, he tells this all to Lorelei, and it's all true from my perspective. I mean, utterly crazy stuff, but true, from his little world. And so Lorelei, at the end of 3 hours, Ricky apologized, says, look, I understand I did it, but I'm really sorry I did it. And Lorelei says, Ricky, I'm going to fight for you. She goes down to the DA's office and says to the DA, I don't want this death penalty stuff. It's not going to do me any good. And I now understand why this awful thing happened to my son. the DA says to her, Ms. Guillory, you're a very strange defendant, I mean victim, and then tries to take her second child away, saying she's an unfit mother because she wants to show mercy to the person who killed her child. We get to trial, right? And I picked a fabulous jury. I love picking juries in America. They were really nice people, and no way were they going to kill Ricky. But Lorelei wanted to testify. And I said, look, you know, you can if you want, but what do you want to testify? We're not going to get to the penalty phase where you get to say life or death. And she's very religious. She prays, and she comes back to me and she says, the logic of my position is that this guy shouldn't be in prison. He should be in a mental hospital. And if you can guarantee to me he'll never get out, that's where I think he should go. So we signed all sorts of stuff so he'd never get out. And she testifies, and I'm British, right? So I don't lose my emotion, show my emotions, but I'm going to have a hard time getting through this ever. This happened years ago, but it's something, I admire this woman more than I admire any other person I've dealt with in this thing. She's on the witness stand, and she tells me to ask her just one question. And I say, Ms. Guillory, do you have an opinion as to whether that man over there who killed your son was mentally ill at the time that he did it? And she turns to the jury and she says this. She says, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I think that Ricky Langley has been crying out for help since the day he was born, and for whatever reason, his family, society, and now the legal system never listened to him. As I sit on this witness chair, I can hear the death cries of my child, but I can still hear that man crying out for help. And I think he was mentally ill when he did this. Now, that's amazing, right? We can't expect everyone to be Lorelei Guillory, but we can aspire to be Lorelei Guillory. And what I don't like about this vengeance nonsense is that it inspires people to be hateful, and it inspires people to build that hate up in themselves, and it does them no good. And I've watched it ruin people. Whereas if we aspire to understand and we aspire not to forgive, Lorelei will never forgive Ricky for what he did, but she wants to show mercy. That's amazing. I admire that woman beyond all else. I'm trying to get a film made about her because she's one of my heroes, and I think we should make her famous. So what I mean is I understand where you're coming from, but I think we really want to work towards something else if we can.
We have time for one more question. If anyone in the audience has a question for Clive, yes.
Don't let that teachers do it. All you students ask the questions. How many movies have you been watching? How many murderers have you met? I've been a victim of attempted murder myself, and there's no such thing as going around it for enjoyment. Now, what's your name? Marish. Would you enjoy killing someone? Do you think someone who says they enjoy it is just a teeny bit crazy? Of course they are. Now, of course that's true. So, you know, we all watch these silly films, and the films have all the nonsense. I represented and helped represent Ted Bundy. You probably heard of Ted Bundy, right? Now, Ted Bundy was utterly mad. When we were doing the last litigation in his case, which is 40 years ago now, he didn't even understand that he was being executed. And you know, if you go Google him and look him up in Wikipedia, he'll come across like he's some suave law student, as a matter of fact, is what they say. That's total nonsense. So if you have any question about what people are like who do that, go meet a few. And I've never taken someone to death row who hasn't changed their view about the death penalty. It always happens.
And with that, I think time for is with that our time for the
Oh, we're going to have another. Oh,
I have one.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clive.
oh, you really got it wrong.
Yeah, I did. The way you broke down complex issues with such clarity and compassion, it was truly inspirational, and I also got some quotes that I'm going to be using more often from this conversation.
The thing about law students is other people, they call it plagiarism. lectures, and we call it research.
Exactly.
Exciting your conversations.
As we bring this powerful session to a close, we are now honored to invite Ms. Zainab Afandi Haki to share her reflections. From advising private sector clients to serving as the head of the law department at SZABIST, she brings an exceptional breadth of knowledge and dedication to the field. With over 15 years of experience, Ms. Afandi Haki is an accomplished legal academic and practitioner whose work bridges the worlds of corporate law, legal education, and public service. Ms. Afandi, may I now kindly invite you to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests and dear students, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Clive, that was a very engaging session. I believe our students enhanced their knowledge through your experiences. I would just like to take a moment and talk about the rights that bind us together, the promises that were made in our Constitution of Pakistan, as well as international legal frameworks. They talk about dignity, security, and opportunity. Article 9 of the Constitution of Pakistan talks about right to life and liberty. At a global level, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, also talks about the same things under Article 3. However, one has to wonder how many of our people actually get those rights. Another article that comes to mind is Article 14 of the Pakistani Constitution. Article 14 talks about privacy of home being inviolable. Similarly, Article 12 of the UDHR talks about the same thing. However, in this age of surveillance, online harassment, cyberstalking, and data misuse, one has to wonder, are our rights of privacy actually inviolable? Having said this, legal rights are actually our lifelines that give us protection. Unfortunately, many of them are not realized. The gap between those promises written on paper through our constitutions and what we actually receive is astounding. Talking about that gap is actually a step towards accountability. At this point, one needs to wonder whether our legal systems, and this goes for international courts as well, whether all these legal systems actually value the fundamental rights guaranteed that are supposed to be equally applicable without discrimination, or do they value the person seeking those rights? That's food for thought for all. Having said that, I'm going to start thanking people, starting with Clive. Your commitment to justice and your decades-long career defending the rights of marginalized people inspires us. We are truly grateful to you for engaging with every one of our students today and enhancing our knowledge, sharing your journey as well as the insights of your experiences. Your commitment to justice in the darkest of hours plays as a beacon of light for all of us. I would like to sincerely show my gratitude to Professor Dr. Riaz Ahmed Sheikh, our Dean of Social Sciences and Education Department. Sir, your continued support and vision has always been instrumental in guiding interdisciplinary conversations at SZABIST. Furthermore, I would like to thank Ms. Wajiha Fatma Javed, Head of Undergraduates Programs, who for her tireless efforts in ensuring that our academic initiatives are not only reflected through academic excellence, but also through real-world relevance. Finally, to the students from Faculty of Law, Business Administration, as well as Social Sciences. I hope today's lecture was challenging enough for you that motivates you to do something more positive in this world. I'd like to end this by saying whether you pursue law, sociology, political science, development, business administration, as long as you are upholding the dignity of others, you will be able to define the future of tomorrow, the future of this country as well as the world. It's a shared responsibility. So I hope we all do this together. Thank you so much.
I'm back again.
I would request Ms. Zainab Effendi to come back on stage and invite Mr. Imtiaz Qazi, the Vice President of Admin and HR, to present a little token of appreciation to Mr. Smith.
Are we doing this? I like them, but that's my head. The only place you can
I would also like to call Dr. Riyash Shah on the stage.
get painful photography over.
Clive, this is a small token to man. This is the token from Sindh, the province to which we are.
My wife doesn't trust me to dress up, so I'll be very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
On behalf of SZABIST, we now invite all our esteemed guests and faculty members for a group photograph.
How about the students? Come on. Yeah.